Jeffrey Dahmer is a name that has become synonymous with one of the darkest chapters in American criminal history. To the outside world, he appeared quiet, withdrawn, and oddly unremarkable. But behind closed doors, in his small Milwaukee apartment, he lived a disturbing double life that would shock the nation and leave a legacy of fear that still echoes today. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His early childhood, at least from the outside, appeared normal enough. Family photos show a blonde-haired boy smiling beside his parents, but internally his home life was filled with tension. His father, Lionel, was a hard-working chemist often away from home. His mother, Joyce, struggled deeply with her mental health and frequently isolated herself in her room. Arguments were common, and the emotional distance between his parents quietly shaped Jeffrey's childhood. At age 4, Jeffrey underwent painful surgery for a double hernia. Some believe this moment marked the beginning of his emotional withdrawal. As he grew older, he became increasingly introverted. He struggled socially, had very few friends, and often wandered alone. Teachers described him as polite but disconnected. Classmates saw him as odd but not threatening. By his teen years, Dahmer developed heavy drinking habits, often hiding alcohol in his school locker or in his coat. His parents' marriage deteriorated, and the household descended even further into chaos. When they eventually separated, Jeffrey was left alone during a vulnerable time in his life. With no structure, no supervision, and increasingly dark thoughts, he crossed a line shortly after graduating high school. That first act set him on a path he would continue for years. Afterward, Dahmer attempted to live a normal life. He briefly enrolled in college, then joined the army. But alcohol and poor discipline led to his discharge. He drifted between family homes, jobs, and cities. He tried to start over repeatedly, but each attempt collapsed under the weight of his growing compulsions and isolation. By the late 1980s, Dahmer returned to Milwaukee. He found work at a chocolate factory and eventually moved into apartment 213 at the Oxford Apartments. From the outside, the building looked ordinary. Rows of identical units housing working-class residents. But inside Dahmer's apartment, his darkest fantasies were left unchecked. Neighbors began noticing strange odors that seeped through vents. They heard strange noises and felt uneasy around the quiet young man who mostly kept to himself. Dahmer always had an excuse ready: spoiled meat, tropical fish, a broken refrigerator. Though concerns were raised, authorities never investigated deeply enough to uncover the truth. Throughout this period, Dahmer's behavior grew more secretive. He spent nights roaming clubs, bars, and local neighborhoods, often seeking people he believed he could manipulate or control. His patterns became disturbingly organized, but he remained calm and outwardly harmless, blending into the background of Milwaukee's nightlife. There were several moments when Dahmer could have been stopped. On multiple occasions, people saw suspicious behavior or felt something was wrong. Neighbors made phone calls reporting the smells, the noises, and Dahmer's unsettling demeanor. Yet each time, the complaints were brushed aside. One of the most tragic missed opportunities involved a young boy who managed to escape Dahmer's apartment. Injured and terrified, he was found by neighbors in the street. They pleaded with police, convinced the boy was in danger. Dahmer approached the officers and calmly explained that it was a misunderstanding between two adults. Believing him, police returned the boy to Dahmer's apartment. That moment has since become one of the most talked about failures in modern law enforcement. Despite everything happening around him, Dahmer continued living a quiet, almost invisible life. He went to work, kept to himself, and stayed off the radar. It wasn't until July 22, 1991, that everything unraveled. That night, Dahmer approached 3 men and offered money to join him at his apartment. One of them, Tracy Edwards, agreed. Once inside, he quickly sensed danger as Dahmer attempted to restrain him. A struggle followed, and Edwards eventually managed to escape. He ran into the street and flagged down police, who listened to his story and decided to investigate. When officers entered apartment 213, they uncovered evidence that revealed the scale of Dahmer's crimes. Photographs, tools, and objects that left no room for doubt. Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested that night. Back at the station, Dahmer confessed with a level of detail and calmness that shocked investigators. He made no excuses. He described his actions and motivations, often expressing that he felt out of control, yet fully aware of what he was doing. His trial began in January 1992 and drew national attention. The courtroom was packed every day, with families of victims seeking answers and closure. Dahmer's defense team argued that he suffered from severe mental illness. Prosecutors argued that, despite his disturbing impulses, he understood right from wrong. In the end, the jury found him legally sane and responsible for his actions. He was convicted of 15 murders and received multiple life sentences. In prison, Dahmer lived a quiet and sometimes troubled life. He spent much of his time reading, giving interviews, and reflecting on his crimes. Some inmates avoided him, while others targeted him. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was attacked by a fellow inmate during a work assignment and died from his injuries later that day. He was 34 years old. His death brought a sense of closure for some families, but for many, it reopened old wounds. The trauma, pain, and devastation his actions caused can never be fully measured. Jeffrey Dahmer's story remains one of the most disturbing in American history, not only because of what he did, but because of how long he was able to continue without being stopped. His case forced police departments to reevaluate procedures, sparked nationwide conversations about mental health, and changed the way America understands the warning signs of dangerous behavior. But above all, the narrative of Jeffrey Dahmer is a stark reminder that true crime stories should always center on the victims. The lives cut short, the families forever impacted, and the communities left searching for healing.